Okay, today we will be discussing Brown versus Board of Education. How many of you are familiar with Brown versus Board of Education? Great, great, great. So, this case involves Oliver Brown and etc. Versus the Board of Education. And later in the PowerPoint, you'll see why it says etc. It just wasn't one case. This case was first argued December 9th, 1952. But they didn't actually listen to the case, but because they didn't think they would win. You had Fred Vinson. He was against segregation, and he actually died during this time. And so they decided to wait to try the case. And when President Dwight Eisenhower was elected November the 4th, 1952, he appointed Chief Justice Earl Warren to the court. And Earl Warren became the Chief Justice to replace the Benson who had just passed. And so Earl Warren was the governor of California, and he was progressive. So they thought, okay, if we retry it now, we can actually win. Okay, so the case involved Oliver Brown and his daughter, Linda Brown. Linda Brown was a third grader who had to walk a mile to school when it was a white school just 7 blocks from where she actually lived. And this happened in 1951. Here's a picture of Oliver Brown and his daughter, Linda Brown. Some background info. Brown versus Board of Education actually overturned Plessy versus Ferguson, and that's some of the next case that we're going to hear somebody who has that case. We will also listen about Dred Scott, somebody has that case, and United States versus Amistad. In all these cases, it was basically a fight for freedom. Some of you are familiar with Dred Scott. With this Amistad case, it's connected to Tougaloo. The people that founded Tougaloo actually were the ones that helped fund this case for the group of Amistad. And like I said, you'll hear more about that from your classmates. Some other cases, Baum and Bett versus Ashley in 1781. Elizabeth Freeman, she fought for her freedom, and she actually won, you guys. So it was a small victory for us in Massachusetts court. More background information. So Brown and 12 other families filed a class action suit with the District Court of Kansas, and they ruled against them. So they decided to appeal the case. And the separate schools were based on a law, an 1879 law in Kansas. Now that's why it's good for you to study the different laws that was passed in this country. You got receipts on what's been going on for a while. The same thing that we're talking about now been happening for a while. Some facts about the case. So Linda Brown was a third grader who had to walk 6 blocks to catch the bus to her school, Monroe Elementary, 1 mile away, when there was a white school, Sumner Elementary, 7 blocks from Linda's house. The NAACP was looking for families so they could file a class action lawsuit. And our boy Thurgood Marshall argued the case, and he later became a Supreme Court justice. Like, this case is what actually made him famous. So, the reason it said that several because it was 5 different cases combined into one, Brown versus Board of Education. You had Briggs versus Elliott in South Carolina. You had Davis versus County School Board in Virginia. You had Gilbert versus Belton in Delaware, and Bowling v. Sharp in Washington, D.C. And when they actually made a ruling, they had to do a separate ruling for D.C. because D.C. is actually not a state. And someone will cover that case as well. So the issue, racial segregation in public venues violated the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause. And so in your presentation, you're gonna have to tell us what parts of the Constitution were violated. And so here we got the 14th Amendment, and this is the Equal Protection Clause. No state shall deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection under the law. So by not having equal schools, they violated this 14th Amendment. This is one of my favorite parts of Brown, the Dodd test. You had Kenneth Clark and his wife, they were psychologists, and they was doing this study on these dolls. And they went and interviewed black kids. And they had a white doll and a black doll. And they was asked the kids, which doll is the good doll? And they would point to the white doll every time. They would ask them which doll is the smart doll. And they would point to the white doll. Which doll is the bad doll? They would point to the black doll. So everything that was negative, they was pointing to the black doll. Everything that was positive, they was pointing to the white doll. And they used this research to win Brown versus Board of Education. Yep. How many of you all knew that? Okay, cool. So the ruling, which is the same thing as the holding. So if I say what was the holding, on May 17th, the court issued an unanimous 9-0 decision overturning Plessis versus First. Segregation of students in public schools violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment because separate facilities are inherited unequal. How can you be separate and equal? Okay. Right. The impact. Separate but equal facilities were deemed unconstitutional. The separate but equal doctrine adopted in Plessis versus Ferguson has no place in the field of education. And this was a quote by Thurgood Marshall. He said, to separate black children from others of similar age and qualifications solely based on their race generates a feeling of inferiority. And that's what they were seeing with the Dodd test, to their point. So these are the people that made up the Supreme Court, and every court is labeled by the Chief Justice. So they said the Warren Court. If you hear them talk about today's, who's the Chief Justice today? Roberts. You hear them say the Roberts Court. Yes, you have a question.
What did you say this is again?
These are the people who were on the Supreme Court in 1954. And Earl Warren was the Chief Justice. These just the names and the faces. Southern resistance to Brown. Now Brown happened in 1954, but they didn't just, again, like we seeing today, they didn't just incorporate Brown. Okay, they ruled that, separate but equal is unconstitutional, so we all gotta go to school together. No, they fought against it. They actually closed schools, districts, and rather than anybody go to school, if they had to go to school with black kids, they was like, ain't nobody going to school. So think about that. Yes.
Is it true when you doing your research, did you hear that they made private schools in the South to get away from,
of course, that's exactly why they created. And if you look at the year it was created, it started in 1969, after they actually was forced to, integrate the schools. And that was with Alexander versus Holmes County. That's where I'm from. They sued for them to integrate the schools. But let's start up here at the top, the Southern Manifesto. Are y'all familiar with the Southern Manifesto? Y'all gotta do some reading these documents. Yeah, these people wrote, and it was the legislature, the Mississippi legislature wrote this paper basically saying that, all the things that they was against, and which birthed the Mississippi Sovereignty Commission. The Mississippi Sovereignty Commission was a government-ran organization that was against civil rights. They would, what's the word I'm looking for? Follow, research, anybody that was in the civil rights movement. Their whole purpose was to stop it, to halt it. How many of y'all are familiar with the Little Rock Mine in Arkansas? Mm-hmm. What do? They integrated the schools. Were they met with resistance? Of course. Like I said, they closed schools in the South. What about Ruby Bridges in New Orleans? Huh?
They have a book about her in the bookstore.
And then the famous picture that you see a lot of places of her being escorted into schools and people throwing things at her. But she was from Mississippi. Did you all know that? She's from Mississippi. Governor George Wallace. How many of y'all heard that name, George Wallace? He was governor of Alabama during this time. And as his inauguration speech, he stood up and said that segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. That was what he ran on, you guys. These people basically was a part of the KKK and they was holding offices. They was also our sheriffs and things like that. That's where a lot of this stuff stemmed from. And it's still a part of it. Ross Burnett. How many of y'all been to the reservoir? He used to be governor. He stood and blocked, what's my boy name? James Merritt from going to Ole Miss. These people trying to make a name for themselves, and they did. History is still talking about them. And of course, we already mentioned Alexander versus Holmes County. So this is how the South resisted Brown. And it just wasn't one Brown. We had Brown 2 and Brown 3. How many of you all knew that? So Brown 2, in 1955, the court delegated the task of carrying out school desegregation to district courts with the order of all deliberate speed. So when they did Brown 1, they didn't put a time limit on it. That's why they took their time and they didn't do it. And for Brown 3, a lawyer convinced Linda Brown to file another lawsuit 25 years after Brown to challenge the district open enrollment policy. Like, you all have to be familiar with all these different terms they come up with to basically funnel funds to private schools. This whole voucher thing, school choice, all this stuff is so that they can send those public funds to private schools. And this is a short video. Up now, showing out front of the Okay, we have to watch the video later. But this is a review. So at the end of your presentation, I want you to have a short quiz, a game, or a review question. So summarize the facts of Brown versus Board of Education. Give me some of the facts. Who's the case about?
Linda Brown.
Third grade Linda Brown. Okay, why?
She had to walk.
You had to walk to school, all right. How many cases were consolidated into Brown? 5 different cases, okay. What was the impact of Brown?
Desegregated schools.
It desegregated schools and it overturned what?
Plessy versus Ferguson.
Plessy versus Ferguson, very good. Name 2 ways that the South resisted Brown.
Southern Manifesto.
Little Rock now.
Little Rock now, okay, very good. What was the Supreme Court holding in Brown?
It was unconstitutional, had them separated.
Okay, remember the holding means, what was their root? Why you looking like that?
Why she say? I didn't know what she said.
I said
You speaking too fast.
segregated schools, that's what I said.
You said,
It's
what now?
unconstitutional to segregate schools, that's
Oh,
all.
okay, all right.
Any questions, any questions? Now you all see how you present your case? All right, I look forward to seeing you all cases and